In this video, we're going to focus on creating what we call a HTML legend here, but we will make sure that this, of course, has this nice effect here. When we click on it, that it will hide them all nicely. As we click on them or unclick or toggle, it will change as well the text into a faded effect here. And this is all completely HTML here. So let's start to explore how to do this. So let's start to explore how to create a HTML legend in Chartjs 3. So the first thing what we need is we need to get a default code. So our default code you can find on this specific website, chartjs3.com, getting started, or this specific link. It's also in the description box. And then once you're on the website, scroll down and copy this chunk of code here. And if you want to understand what this code all is, make sure you watch this video, it explains it all. So I'm going to paste all this code in there, cut this out, and put that in here. Save that, refresh. There we are. So now we have this, and what I want to do now is eventually start to create our HTML legend, putting in here. And if you have seen in the documentation, there's a sample of it, and to be honest, it's a brilliant code, but it's quite complicated. And it has a lot of items in here. Well, we will have also a lot of different parts of the code, and some parts we will be basically having from this, but I will explain every step here so you will understand it. That's probably the most important part of it. And what we will do is in this code is we'll do two specific functions. One is to create the legend and the other one is to update the legend. And that's the big difference here compared to the code here. What they did was they put everything all together, and it has a sort of functionality in there, which I understand they did, but because everything's in one function. Anyway, I will make a separate video to explain this one because that requires also some deeper understanding. However, for us now, all I want to show you first of all where we're going to put eventually the div that will become our legend. So what I'm going to do, and this is basically a sample, but I'm not going to put it here in with HTML. We're going to use full JavaScript for this, and of course some CSS to add the classes and do some design. But it will look like this. Something like this with a div, and then this ID would be the legend. And then we have here closing div tag, and then we have here the unordered list. In the unordered list, we have a list item, and the list item will cover a span and probably a paragraph or some text as well. So I guess a P is fine, but maybe we can do something else. This will be the text, and here this will be basically this span here, by the way, is our color box. So, and of course, what we will do is we need to look through this, because if we would have another data set, we want to make sure that there's two like this. So if we refresh here, it will look something like this. Of course, besides these other proper colors, very similar to this design with the borders, background, matching font style here, and of course this functionality here. If you click on it, we want to make sure, in this case, I don't want to do a strike through, which you can do by the way, but I want to do it, make it like a faded effect. I like that a bit more on our text. It looks a bit more appealing. So that is basically what we're going to do here. So what we need to do is we have this div here, but I'm going to comment this all out because we are not going to use this. As I said earlier, we're going to use JavaScript. So that will mean that we're going to use this specific class, or this div here in this class. We're going to say search for this class and insert here a div that we're going to create in JavaScript that consists of all of this structuring. Alright, so now you have a little bit of understanding of what we're going to do. Now it's time to start creating it. So the first thing what I want to do then is of course create the function, and this function will be generate legend or create legend. Generate legend, and this generate will be the following. I'm going to say here, first of all, the create the div. So we're going to create a div, and this div we're going to give it a constant of div, but the document. So we say here the following: document.createElement. Remember, in JavaScript, they tend to call a element or a selector. So create element, and this element, single quotation, and I'll put in div here. I have the habit to put caps locks in here, but it's not necessary. It's optional. So once I have this, what I also want to do is I want to give this an ID immediately. So I'm going to say here div, which is basically now our new element, div dot set attributes. Attributes, yes, and then here I'm going to say the ID, and the ID will be the name of custom legend with capital L. Alright, So once we did this, we're not done yet. Because what I want to do, of course, because we create now a div, but of course I want to insert a div in a specific place. So I'm going to get the selected location. And what I need to do here is basically this. You go in here in the chart box, you can see this class here. So what I'm going to do is chart box, copy that, say constant chart box equals. And then here, document dot query selector. As I said earlier, a selector is a element or similar to element. They are synonyms. And query means search. So search for a selector, and our selector is a string value dot for class, and then chart box, capital B in my case, because I have capital B as the class name here. So once we did this, then I want to insert this item into our chart box. So I'm going to say insert div into chart box, and then what I'm going to say is the following. I'm going to say here chart box dot, and then we're going to say here append child. This is very important. So what we're going to talk about here is basically about parent elements and children elements. And what is the difference is basically this. If you go back here, this item here is considered a parent compared to the unordered list. Why? Because if you look at it, basically it is nested within here. But this legend ID is a child in comparison with this here, because this one is the chart box which is nested within here. And this canvas here would be basically the brother. So we can see this parent has two children, the canvas, and another brother is called the legend, or sister, of course, doesn't matter. So those are basically siblings from each other. So this is very important to understand. So now we have this here, I'm going to put it in here. So what is a child then? In this case, div is the child. If I save this, we're not done yet here, because I want to, because we have this function here, but the function is not being activated. So what I'm going to say here, generate legend, this would be our initial load. Initial load, save that. I want to put a semicolon here just to make it neat. Refresh. Alright. You don't see, of course, anything here, but if I click on this, you will probably see here, and I realize we have all of this mess here. Let me just remove that first. Delete all of this comment out, so you will see it immediately, and it's a bit more cleaner. You can see this is the canvas, and look, there's the sibling, and the sibling here is custom legend. Alright, so we have it, and it's working nicely. So what we need to do now is, of course, to create as many as possible. But, or at least, sorry, we have to create more items, which is now the unordered list. So let's do the same here. Let's say create UL, and then create UL will be constant UL equals document dot create element, and then UL. And then what I'm going to do here is, once I have this, I want to make sure we go to the next one, and the next one will be the list item. But this is important. We have this here, but the list item should be looped. And let me show you why. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy all of this. I'm going to add up a new data set, comma, and let's say this will be not sales, this will be cost. And the cost will have the red color, so I'm going to delete everything here, except for the first value. Save that, refresh. There we are, and then what I want to do maybe for the other one is just to get the green color only. So we have, so I'm going to remove everything except for the fourth value, the centerpiece, which is eventually the green color. Alright, so sales is green, cost is red, very applicable. So you can see here, now we have this. We will loop through this one. This one needs to be looped, but here, of course, we don't have a loop yet. So how do we do this? So if you've seen this video specifically from me, this one here, about how to change the legend effect on shade and unshade, we have here the generate label feature, and that's what we're going to use here. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to show you this very useful item. So I'm going to say here my chart, which is basically this here. My chart dot, and then say here dot legend, and then I'm going to do here console log dot, and then of course this needs to be in here. Save that, refresh, go to console log, click on this, and then you can see here basically the generated legend is built on this legend items. And you can see here all these items here consist everything we need. The fill style, which is the border for the background color, the font color, which is 666, hashtag 666. Is it hidden, yes or no? And you can see here the border line, which is called the stroke line here in Canvas, and of course the text of weekly sales. Same here, weekly cost. You can see here the text here. Let's grab this legend item. Dot legend item. Refresh here. There we are. So all of this information is basically what the functionality of generate labels does for the legend. And we need this, or specifically, there's some items that we want to pick out of it. So we're going to cherry pick them. And which one we need, of course, is the text, the stroke line. What we have here more is the font color, the fill style, and of course the data set index. So let's start to work on this. So what I'm going to do here now is the following. We're going to use the map, or sorry, not even the map, but we're going to use the for each loop. We want to loop through all of these data one by one and then extract the colors from it and then eventually assign them into our items that we have or that we need. So we're going to say for each double 2 times you put in here the double parentheses, sorry, and then we have here the function error expression, and then in here this now is a shorthand for us if we just do now here data set. So basically this equals every individual data set, which is basically this one here, the 0 or the 1. And what you can also do is the index here, we just grab that as well, and then let's see what we need. Make sure you have parentheses here, or curly braces as well. And then in here, semicolon there, and then in here we're going to start working on. And what I want to do is just very simple. Just grab the ones we need. So let's do the text first. So you see here, data set dot text. And then what I want to say here, constant text equals the data set dot text. So the next one would be constant, maybe here the data set or the index. I guess we have the index even here, so I guess it will be redundant, but that's alright. Just to say this one, data set index. And that is exactly the same here as well, so it doesn't matter. Data set dot index. Later on we'll be needing this one. Next, what we need is we need the border color, of course. So we have here the fill style, which is the border color. Say constant here, and then we say here sorry, that's not the border color, it's the background color. So BG color equals fill style, and then of course dataset dot fill style. And then what I need next one is the border color. So what is the border color? That is the stroke style. That's because this is our Canvas terms. And if you want to learn more about Canvas, please watch my Canvas series in YouTube. You'll learn a lot about this as well. So we say here, I don't want to call that stroke style, but I'll say B color for border color. And say data set dot stroke style. And then finally here, I guess we'll say font color equals data set dot hashtag 666, which is font color as well. There we are. So now we have this here. We can now start to work on assigning these items on our new items as well. So what I'm going to do here is the following. What are we going to create here? Remember, this is a loop, and we need a loop for every list item. And list item consists of one span, which is a square, and then of course the paragraph or the text matching with that. So what I'm going to do here is constant. And then let's say here we're going to create the list item. So we say li, and then we say here document dot create element, and then we say here list item. Alright, so that's the first one. And let's put in here create list item li in for each loop. Very important. And later I'm going to explain more about that. Next, what I want to do is to create that square shape here. And I don't want this exact shape, but we just make a rectangle or square shape here. So let's say here we can call it the span color box, but basically it's a span. So I'm going to say a constant. And we say here maybe a span box. Let's make this a capital B. Say here document dot create element, and this element will be called the span. Once we have this, we want to do the following in here. So what I want to do here is basically this. I want to give it the border color, and I want to give it the background color that matches with it. So what is the border color? It's this one here, and this is the background color. So I'm going to say here span box dot style dot Then we're going to say here, let's do the border color first. Border color equals, what exactly? B color. And then of course we can do exactly the same. I'm going to just put an enter here. Let's say BG color will be here, but this will be background color. So this is pure CSS. Basically we are signing with CSS in here. So now we have this. And if we save this, most likely you will not see anything because we didn't append it all. As you can see here, custom legend, it doesn't have anything here. What we can do now is start to do some additional appending. So I'm going to put in here. And then of course the div, and this div will append what? The UL that we have here. So then, now is my ultimate question for you. Do we put in the UL, or from UL into the LI? Do we put it here, or do we put it here up? Well, if you wonder, well, remember, we're having a for loop here. For every individual item, we need to loop through that and add it in here. This one here is not a for loop, so it will only add up once. This is the reason why this will not be up here, even though we have a loop in there as well. Then you get a very weird shape, or very weird item. So what I want to do here is, of course, I'm going to say here the following. UL dot append child, and what is the child here is basically LI. And then LI has a child, and that child, or the child name, is span box. So if I save this now and refresh, there we are. So we get now something. You see the custom legend, and you can see it here on item, list item. You can see here the mark, and you see your span, and this span is basically our span box with the colors and everything in here. Alright, so this is working, but of course I'm not satisfied because we're missing still the paragraph. Let's add up the paragraph. So we say here, span, not span, and I guess it could be basically a span here as well. But that's alright. I'll just make it a paragraph for now. Paragraph plus text. So what I'm going to do here is, remember we have the text here, and we have first the paragraph. So we say constant p equals document dot create element, and then we're going to say here p. Alright, so when we have this, the next thing what I want to do, of course, is because now we created the paragraph, but we have no text. So how do we add up a text? So for that, we need to use the following. I'm going to say a const, then we say here, let's do a text node. And basically what we're going to do is, we're going to create a child for the paragraph, and this is why you call it a text node. Why? The text is between or nested between the paragraph syntax or element. So that's why the text itself is a child from the paragraph. So then we say here document dot, then we say you create text node. That's the first one. And what will be the text? Copying this text here. Doing that. Alright, so then now what I want to do here is I want to add up here, or we can just do paragraph dot append child. And this append child will be basically the text node. And then I'm just getting ahead of myself. I need to do another one. So remember here we have the LI, but the paragraph and the span box are side by side. So in other words, they are siblings from each other, while this is the parent. So and the parent has two children in this case, the span box, that's child number one, and the second child is the paragraph. So we say append child p. So if I save this now and refresh, we get now the item. But of course, if we click on it, nothing happens here. So we have some work to do regarding to the effect here. And of course, we still need to do a lot of styling here. So that will be next. So we have all of this here. And if you look at this right now, this is working. So save this, refresh, alright. So then what I want to do is just quickly is to do the CSS in here. And then we're going to work on the click functionality, because that one is a bit more tricky. So we have to spend some time on that one, or at least the understanding of it. However, once you understand it, it's very easy to grasp. So in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to now just pinpoint here. Let's grab the, remember we had here the custom ID or the custom legend, which is basically the div ID of legend. So I'm going to grab this one here. And what I want to do is just to make it just matching with our item here. I'm going to say here, hashtag this, alright. And then what I want to do here is the following. So we don't have to really adjust anything on the div itself. The div is basically the container, and for me this is perfect. And I like them here to be that they are stacked on each other. So that's anyway fine. However, what is important is I want to now pinpoint the UL. So we could give an individual class to the UL, or we can just do it like this. We say the unordered list that is positioned within the div or within a ID of custom legend. So that's very important. So it doesn't have to be a div. It could be a paragraph. It could be a span, whatever. So, but just within the ID of custom legend, and in our case, it is the div. And then we're going to say you just display, and then let's say a flex, I guess. Be nice, and then we say flex direction column. So we're going to make them nice columns. And then next, I want to make sure if I save that, we'll at least do the margin 0 and margin left as well, or sorry, padding 0. Save that, refresh. Alright, so nothing here really changes, but that's fine. Just to reset it, making sure that it's in the original position. Then what I want to do is I want to pinpoint now specifically the list item. What we need to do here is eventually we need to remove this marker here. You can see here the disk. That needs to be removed. And once we have that one, we want to align this all nicely in the center, or at least put them nicely representing each other. So what I'm going to say here is the following. We're going to do again a hashtag custom legend, and you could give individual classes. As I said earlier, I noticed that some people say this is not useful to do because it will be too elaborate. But I do know that this is an easy way for anyone who is in CSS to understand that which item is directly connected with each other. So it's up to you if you like to use this kind of structure, or you give it an individual class. So then what I want to do here is, well, just very simple. I'll say display flex, it's flexible. Then we say align items center. And then what I want to do here as well, because eventually I want to make this clickable. So I'm going to say here will be a cursor, will be a pointer. So when we hover over the list item, it will be very, very nice. And then what we want to do here, flex direction, will be a row. Alright, so that will mean that they are from left to bottom, left to right, fully covered basically, or at least we avoid them that they're next to each other, so they will be stacked below each other. Once we have this, then what I'm going to say here, I want to have at least some margin at the bottom. So say margin bottom. Don't use padding here, but margin. The reason why is later on is when we're going to create a click effect, padding would be considered one part of it, and that can have a undesired side effect. Anyway, later on I'll show you more. We do this. Alright, so now you can see here, we can do this one, and I guess we could do this. We could even remove this eventually, but doesn't matter for now. Most important thing is I want to make sure that this here works nicely. It goes from one side to another. So next thing what I want is in here, and later on I'm going to show you, because there will be here something else more that we need that would avoid the click bug. So I would say here avoid click bug, or at least not really a click bug, but it might look buggy, but it's not. But we have something to counteract that later on once we have the click function working. So the next thing what I want to do here is to create the span. Because let's look at it. Right now the span has this here, but it's just 0 equals 0. So basically this width and height equals 0. That's not suitable. So let's do here hashtag custom legend ul list item span. And then what I want to do here is I want to say first of all display inline block, and by default it is on inline. But if you do inline, it will not. It doesn't respect the margin and the padding. So it doesn't respect that, or at least it will not work. Especially left and right padding will not work properly, or the top and bottom, one or the other. So I want to make sure that it's a block, so it will understand it as like a square, and it will avoid, and we can position and we can give it a height and a width properly. So then what I will say here, this will be a height of 20 pixels. And then we can say here as well a width of maybe 20 pixels. We can change this to if you want to make a different shape. And then what I want to do is Once I did this, if I save this now and refresh, you can see here, all right, it works, but you see we are next to each other. I want to put some margin at the right side. So I'm going to say here, margin at the right side. Let's do here, maybe 10 pixels. Save that. All right, that's acceptable. Next, what I want to do here is I want to say here a border. So I want to do only border style, and I'll say the border style will be solid. And the reason I'm doing that is because we have assigned down here the border. Remember that. We have assigned the border here, but in CSS basically what we need, or basically to draw a border, we need to say the amount of pixels, the border style, and the border color. That's basically what we need. And what we only have right now is only assigned a border color. So we didn't say the style, and we also didn't indicate how many pixels will the border be. So what we're going to say here, border style, and of course border width. Border width will be 1 pixel. Save that, refresh, and there you are. That starts to look absolutely phenomenal. Alright, so now we have that. Let's see what we have more here. We have now the paragraph, and I guess, to be honest, I do like whatever is in here, but just for the sake of it, we were just going to reset this one, although it doesn't even matter. To be honest, I don't even see a difference on it. So, but just, I guess, to be sure, we're going to say here, margin 0 and heading 0. Next, once we have this, what we want to do next is we can consider here eventually a border color. So the border color, should we assign it here, or should we assign it in JavaScript? In my case, I'm going to do it in the CSS. And the reason why is we have a default border color, or sorry, not the border color, I was talking about the font color. And the font color was by default hashtag 666. This is the default color here. So in my sincere opinion, we don't have to really use this one. This is basically an obsolete item in our case, unless you want to get the official font color that's maybe different or matching with the borders. Then you can just assign the border color on here. So for now, because I will just use the basics, I will not spend some time on that. So what I'm going to do here is, well, we're going to use here just in here. Let's see, where is that? In this one here. I'm just going to say here, color. And I'm going to get the RGBA of hashtag 666. If you want to get the RGBA, and then here will be 102, 102, 102, 0, number 1, because it's solid. Later on, we're going to make a fade effect that when you click on it and it's not showing, it should be a bit more lighter. Save that, refresh. Alright, so now you can see these colors are slightly changed and matching with our items here. Of course, when we click on it, nothing works here. Scroll down here and now start to work on the click effect. So to create a click effect, what I want to do here is very important. We need to basically create a new function. This function is very straightforward and does only one thing. It will basically toggle a class with it. So what I want to do here, that's it. I'm going to say a function, and I'm going to say a function, and then you're going to say here update legend. And this update legend will later have a parameter. And all I want to do here is the following. I want to say here toggle the specific item. In this case, I need to make the click functionality first to move the value here. The click value will be moved in here, and from here on we can move there. So let me just start doing that before we continue on with this. So where do we work on the click value? Well, we work it on this loop function here, the for each function. Here, for every item, we should be able to track if we click on this one or if we click on that one, like this here. If you click on the green one, the green bar needs to hide. If you click on the red one, the red bar needs to hide, obviously. So same methodology for us here. So what we're going to do here is the following. We're going to say here, well, let's see here. Where can we do this one properly? I guess just here down, and then I'm going to say the following. Li for the list item, because for every individual list item, then we say on click. So basically we want to trigger it when we click on it, and then what we want to grab is the click variable or the click information. That's basically the event with the values. So then what we're going to do here, and this is very important, and this is probably the most complicated part. We're going to use a certain value, and this is the reason why you have the data set here. And what I'm going to do here is the following. I'm going to show you here console log first. Let's do the click here first. Save that, refresh. Go to the console tab, click on one, and you can see here we selected on something. We click here, we select again on something, but of course it doesn't really show what it selects. It selects something, but you can see here basically what we do know is it selects this LI. So that's the official path here. This is all fine, but what I want to do is to make this easier with this. What I need to do, of course, is two things. First of all, when we click on this, we need to know we clicked on this item, and then we need to know if it's shown, yes or not. If it's not shown, we need to make it visible. And if it's visible, we want to basically have the unvisible effect, and of course later on we have the different, now strike through, or in this case, a faded effect. So to do this, I'm going to use the function that Chartjs has built in. So I'm going to say chart, my chart, dot, I'm going to say set data set visibility, because we can just borrow this item here. And this might be confusing, but just stay with me. Save this, and then we're going to grab this to get the function. This is a built-in function in Chartjs. We want to read that function. So if I click on here, you can see here we get this function here, and we get here our click item. But I just want to grab this entire code. Let's copy this, and let's start to dissect this step by step. So what does this really do here? So you have here two parameters, or two arguments, or basically two parameters here, the t, and the t is basically our dataset index. So basically we could just say here the dataset index we need to get. So let's say here t equals this, alright? And how we get that is of course by here putting it like this. Then here, then we say here the dataset index. But of course you can see what's next is the e. The e is basically the check that if the item would be hidden, yes or no. So we can see that. And how can we check this? Basically, you can see here we have this hidden. This is the command here. But of course, I don't want to do this because I'm using already this functionality here. All I need to know is how can I make sure that we use the same commands here while simply doing this. What I'm going to do here is the following. I say here console log. I'm going to use another built-in functionality here. And basically it says here my chart dot is data set visible, yes or no. And then here of course the number 0 or 1, which is of course our data set again. So if I save this now and click on that, or refresh, click, we get now here undefined. Don't worry about that, it will be eventually recognized, because this is built for a function here. And now right now we're missing of course two parameters, so it doesn't read anything, or we only have one parameter and it says, hey, hold on, where's the other parameter? So, and then we see here false. So it says here hidden, not if not, do something. So basically here, if it is hidden, is it hidden, yes or no? And basically here it just do something here. So what we need to do here is the negative. We need to make sure it's a negative. So if it's not hidden, it's false, and if it's hidden, or sorry, if it's not visible, that's it, sorry, here is dataset visible. If it's not visible, it is true, and if it's visible false, means it is exactly the opposite. I'm getting almost confused as well. Don't worry about that. But what we need is this one, and then we just have to do like a double negative. That's basically here. We have to just switch the way we see it, exactly the opposite. Alright, so what that would mean is here, all I need to do here is to make here a negative by saying this. So if I save that, we have here, and then if I click on that, now we get true. That's basically what we need, exactly the opposite of it. So, alright, so we have this here, and what I want to do is to make it very simple for you, because if not, it looks such a mess, because this code is basically two things in one. So, what I will do here, we have this. I'll cut this out here. And we had the two variables here, t and e, alright? So what I will say here, now the first one is the data set, yes? And then the second one would be visibility. And then basically, if we do this, we could copy this entire item here, or we could say here, constant is hidden equals, I don't know if is hidden is a functionality, I don't think so, is hidden, putting a comma like that. So this would make it very easy to read for us. So once we have this, alright, so we have that one here, then what I want to do, of course, here is the following. So what we're going to do then is, if this is the case, we're going to say here update the legend, which is our functionality here on update legend. And then of course what I want to send here is the click value. So this here shows the information including this here. Alright, so now you see that this basically, what we get is just this function. We just simplified the function because basically we send this data that we have here. This data is identical to this, except that this now is here. And what will happen is it will basically convert this as well into this, and the E will be the is hidden item like that. Basically that's what we really did here in a negative form. Alright, so this will, and these are the two parameters, and we'll run this function here. So basically we just insert the arguments or the values for that function. That's what we did here. So I hope this is understandable, and if not, just duplicate what I did here. That will save you a lot of headaches. Anyway, we did this now, semicolon here. Now what I want to do is, of course, here, because we have this here now, we have this click effect, and what I want to say here just now, console log, clicked, save that, refresh, do this, there we are, click, 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 but of course, we also need to know what did we click on. If I do here, click, save, click, you see here all the information that we have here. And here basically what we need eventually is the target. You can see here the target is the P, which is the paragraph. Alright, so what I need is basically the following. I need to say here, not only the paragraph, but I need to go from the paragraph back to the parent, or the parent node. So if you're understanding already what I would talk about children and parents, you will know that the parent of P would be the list item. And what I want to do here is very simply this. When we click on this specific item, I want to toggle a class that says click, so we can give it a different color or different effect. And then that would eventually trigger everything else. So what I'm going to do here now is very simple, just do a toggle. I'm going to do a toggle here. And this toggle will be based on the element. So I'm going to say constant. And I'm going to select here the element, because it's an element, and then we say you click dot target, and then we're going to use here the function of parent node. What will happen if we just say here this, we would see now what is the parent of this element. If I save this, refresh, click, you can see here the list item. And specifically if I hover over it, you will see even which list item as well. This is very, very important to understand, because if I click on this specific list item, the green one must be the target, and the green one must hide. Alright, so this is the information we need to know. So now, once we have this, what I'm going to say here is very simple. This element, what I want to do here, dot. And I'm going to say here, class list. We're going to add a class, or not more specifically, we're going to toggle. And toggle means like a checkbox. When you click on it, it shows, and when you click again on it, it will hide it. Say toggle, and then what are we going to add up here? In this case, I will just say fade. Basically, we create a faded effect here. That will be the toggle. So now if I save this, and if I click here, you should be able to see that we have a new class on here. Let's see. Do we? Well, let's see. We have the item here. Did I refresh, or let me double check. Element. Alright, so element target node. Click. There you are. You can see now the toggle works. If I click again, it hides. So now we have this, and what we want to do here, my chart dot, and I'm going to update the chart here. Because of our function here, this creates the hidden effect, or the on-click effect. It should now trigger our item beautifully. There we are.
So you can see here, now we have this. So what I want to do, because this is the only bug here, or at least, well, I'm going to show you the bug, but the tricky part is the following. We go up here in the custom legend here. What I'm going to do is just say here this, put in that, and then what I'm going to say here is, well, we have the li, and let's say this li here dot fade. And then, well, let me do this down here. That's more appropriate. I do a dot fade, and the reason why the dot, because I want to say if this specific item is faded, the list item. I'm not talking about the paragraph. I don't want the paragraph to be faded, but specifically the list item here. So then what I'm going to do is here, just very simple, I say 0.5, and then we save this, refresh, click on it, there we are. So if we click on it a bit here, you can see here, look at this. So what is happening here? So you might say, hey, we have a bug here. The truth is we don't have a bug. What is happening now? We didn't really click on the paragraph or on the children. What we really clicked on, you can see here, it recognized our click on the list item. And so it says, all right, so the parent of the list item is the unordered list. So that's the parent, and that's why it becomes now faded. So what is the issue here? Well, the issue is very simple, and that's why I want to show you this individually. You can see here, look at the height here from the paragraph. You can see the height is 18 pixels. If I go now to the list item, you can see the height is 22 pixels. And that's what's happening. I'm clicking on the list item, which is 22 pixels, or more specifically, there's 4 pixels difference. And that is creating an issue. So let's start to solve that one now. So, alright, what I'm going to do here is to avoid the click bug. So it's not really a bug. It's just a mistake, a logical mistake, a human error. That's really the truth here. It's a human error, but you might experience it or the customer might experience it as a bug. Anyway, what we want to do here is we're going to say here that the line height must be 22 pixels. So it's equal to our paragraph. Then if we save this here now, then we refresh, and then we click here somewhere between, you can see here now we cannot go wrong. There we are. And this is basically the entire process here, and I hope you're able to understand step by step everything, but this is the most important part of this. Just a quick note here, I will make an individual one for the pie and donut chart because they have a different structure, but this is suitable for a line chart, bar chart, and every other chart that doesn't have the radial structure, because donut chart has a different structure and doesn't work with any kind of axis. So this is how we customize our item. Let's remove this one now, because you can see here, as we click on this, of course this will counteract with each other. So let's solve that. I'm going to go here down, say here plugins, legends, and then we say here, oh, make sure that's this, and then enter, and we say here, display equals false. Save that, make sure you have a comma here, save, refresh. There we are. So now we have everything is absolutely beautiful, and of course, what would happen if I would add a new item here? Let's do another one. Will it show nicely? Well, the answer is yes. So weekly profits, and then I'll just put in here a different color. Save. There we are. Now we have this working nicely. Everything, because our for loop here works nicely, so it understands it nicely. This is basically how to do it. So if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to recommend you another one here. Maybe you don't want to work on customizing a HTML legend, but you want to make it built in the canvas. This is another option here, but this one will work slightly different, of course, specifically for bar chart as well at the very top. Of course, you can position it up and down as you want it, and it will create also a shade or a faded effect instead of a strike through.